I would have no capacity to speak. I would have no capacity to write my books, nor would you. And so I believe absolutely in the First Amendment. I believe in the absolutely believe in the First Amendment. In that regard, you have to understand that we are a pornographic-ridden nation because of the left. The left said in the famous case of pornography back in the 60s, what was his name? The guy shot in the groin by a God-fearing American who hated him for putting out a dirty magazine. Larry Flynt was shot in the groin by a man who hated pornography. Do you remember that? Well, Larry Flynt doubled down after he came out of the hospital and made fortune upon fortune putting out filth. You don't have to buy the filth. Of course, the filth is now in every corner store because of Larry Flynt. Or I should say because of the lawyers or the lawyer for Larry Flynt who argued that pornography is not filthy. It's a matter of community standards. You remember that? And as a result of that, we have to live with it. And we do. No one goes and blows up porn stores. Nobody goes and shoots a porn clerk. Nobody goes and blows up a cable company that disseminates it. You watch it or you don't. That's what we have to tolerate in an open society. And many of us bite our lips, and we live with it. That's all. It's as simple as that. If the Muslims want to live in this country, they're going to have to learn to live in an open society. If they can't live in it, then they have an option, which is to leave it and go back to a God-fearing nation like Yemen, where I'm sure the welfare benefits and the freedoms are just as great, just as well-funded, and just as strong as in America. I'm paraphrasing someone right now, those of you who get the joke. All right, I've spoken. Now it's time for you to speak. KSFO, David in San Francisco. KSFO, fire away. You're on the Savage Nation.
Well, I just listening to you talk about Bill O'Reilly, I think you have original thoughts. Bill O'Reilly, I think he speaks without thinking out what is really going on. He's almost like a puppet in a way of something larger than him. And
well, I don't know if Fox News or News Corp is still 18% owned by Prince Alawid. I think he sold those shares. You could have argued that while the Saudi prince, who was a minority stakeholder in News Corp, was involved, they never, ever, ever said anything negative about Islam. And they never said anything negative, by the way, to this day about, so far as I know, about immigration. Did you notice that about Fox News?
Correct.
That's because Boss Tweed, Rupert Murdoch, is in favor of Hillary Clinton. So far as I know, he's a Hillary guy. And also they're in favor of amnesty because they're part of the power structure where cheap labor is king. So, yeah, there are forces upon them that are business related, as you say. But this is a no-brainer for Bill O'Reilly. He didn't have to take the side of the jihadists, but he did. I mean, what did he gain by this, David? Do you think his listenership is going to go up?
No, not at all.
I think he's actually looking for a job to replace Jon Stewart. I think that's where he belongs, is on Comedy Central. He started out in entertainment, didn't he?
That's a great point. That is a great point.
I mean, he knows there's more money in entertainment than there is in even news, so I think maybe he's just trying out to replace him on Comedy Central.
Right,
this was his tryout. David, I'm sending you a copy of my great novel, Countdown to Mecca. You'll see next week when everybody gets it and they read it how good it is, and that'll be it. But I want to go on to the next callers or two. We're going to play all the latest sound that I have. There are others who are supporting the jihadis in a soft way, not in a hard way. No one actually says the jihadis were right. But by attacking Pamela Geller as being the provocateur, they're fundamentally supporting the jihadis. It's that simple. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Hey, our Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I trust for wealth insurance, gold and silver. Call 800-BUICOIN.
To the youth of this city, I will seek justice on your behalf. This is a moment. This is your moment. Let's ensure that we have peaceful and productive rallies that will develop structural and systemic changes for generations to come. You're at the forefront of this cause.
You remember her? Remember this idiot? This idiot, the Baltimore State Attorney, Marilyn Mosby. Remember how dumb she sounded reading the script written for her by boys with large eyeglasses with curly hair from the ACLU. Well, are you ready for this one? Paige Kreuter, formerly of Baltimore State Attorney's Office, actually says that Mosby may face criminal charges herself because of her sloppy work. And we're going to cover that in the next hour. She's saying that this incompetent moron, Mosby, said that the police made an illegal arrest of Freddie Gray because the knife that he was carrying was legal. But according to the Baltimore Sun, the police task force examined the knife and said the officers were indeed correct. The knife was spring-assisted and therefore prohibited. Now, if that turns out to be true, then this idiot Mosby, who made the, quote, illegal arrest of the police, could be charged under her own theory of false imprisonment. And she could be sued on top of it all, since she forfeited her immunity from civil action by doing the charging herself, not using one of her own attorneys. That's what's going on in Baltimore right now, and I want to cover that in the next hour. These poor cops have been crucified by an aggressive, highly political state attorney who wants to move up politically and be the next Michelle Obama. I said that when it happened. Turns out I was right. But now you'll see that it could turn out she could get charged with false arrest herself. And if we can raise enough money for the poor cops, maybe we can get a really good liberal First Amendment lawyer to defend them. One of the best out of Los Angeles or New York, one of the really bad ones. One of the kinds of First Amendment lawyers who you normally hate. If they could only take the case of these 6 cops as quickly as they would take that of an Islamist murderer, God, what a great world it would be. If we could only get one of those great loudmouth New York ACLU lawyers who are quick to defend jihadis, to defend these 6 cops in Baltimore, what a great circus it would become. Because we may actually see Mosby going to jail under the pretext that she raised herself of false imprisonment. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Wouldn't that be justice? No justice, no peace.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Welcome back. Thinking well is the best revenge. By the way, not living well. That's for the incompetent, degenerate English. Living well is the best revenge. It wasn't an English woman who said it, by the way. Or you can't be too rich and too thin. Things like that don't really matter. Thinking well is the best revenge. And it's very difficult to think well when you're under stress. But like that traffic cop in Texas, who while under fire was able to fire back with a handgun, facing Muslims with machine guns with body armor and kill both of them. That's what you have to do in radio in order to survive. So right now we're going to ratchet it up. You've heard of multitasking. We're going to multi-topicking. We're going to multi-topic, rather, on the Savage Nation. We've been covering the way that those in the media who think that they're so smart got it wrong by attacking Pamela Geller instead of the jihadists, thereby appeasing the radical Muslims, thereby taking us down the road of the slow road of attrition to their demands, because today it's cartoons, tomorrow it's pork, after the pork it's the church bells, after the church bells it's be Muhammad for a day, after being Muhammad for a day it's female genital mutilation. I mean, where does it end? It ends there with Pamela Geller. Either you're on her side or you're on the side of the jihadists. It's that simple. It's a war, and it's a war of attrition that's been going on for 1,000 years or for millennia. But if you don't know history, you're going to repeat your history. Now, we're talking about that topic, as well as the Baltimore situation, where the incompetent moron, Marilyn Mosby, you listen to her voice, she's just like an idiot, that they somehow picked her from, almost like an Obama, was handpicked by certain powerful people to become president. It seems to me Marilyn Mosby was handpicked to become Baltimore State Attorney because she sounds like an incompetent child in her charges, if you remember it. So let's listen to her right now in her original statement where the world gasped when they heard this child speaking, ruining the lives of 6 policemen and endangering police across America. Listen.
To the youth of this city, I will seek justice on your behalf. Oh, this is a moment. This is your moment.
Do you understand what she just did? She was on a soapbox becoming Al Sharpton in a skirt. Her job is not to seek justice on their behalf. I said it last week. Right off the bat, I knew she was zany. She was batty. It's not our job to seek justice on behalf of the mobs. It's called mob justice. So that's what you had in Baltimore. And there's more you could listen to her. I mean, we don't have to go on and on because we have the other side of it today. Now, a former state attorney, Paige Kreuter, formerly of the Baltimore State's Attorney's Office, says that Marilyn Mosby herself can be charged for an illegal arrest of the police because of what she said they did. She may have made the illegal arrest, and she could be charged under her own theory of false imprisonment. So let's now play clip 7 of former Deputy State Attorney Paige Kreuter talking about the incompetence of the state attorney in Baltimore, Mosby. Listen.
She didn't use the tools available to her. She herself is terribly inexperienced. She never personally was involved in any cases of these magnitude. And further of all, you can look at the charges themselves that tell you that she doesn't have her ducks in a row.
All right. Then she goes on in the next clip, which you must hear.
Her probable cause statement, which she drafted, and it wasn't a police officer doing it, she drafted to establish probable cause for the arrest of these officers, do not support the charge of second-degree murder. And then she has charged the 2 arresting officers with false imprisonment when there's a serious question as to whether or not there was probable cause. She also could not possibly have thought through the implications of charging officers for arresting without probable cause, because those implications are very serious if you're going to charge them criminally for what may have been a mistake.
Yeah, for what may have been a mistake. So now the case hinges not only on Mosby's incompetence and bias, by the way, and her mob mentality, but she goes on in 9 and 10, and you have to hear these.
But if an officer has incorrectly interpreted the Fourth Amendment to be subject to criminal charges, has a huge chilling effect on the police department, about which I'm getting feedback already. So, yeah, she could not have possibly taken the time to think that through. When you have
hold on. Sorry. Listen, that's the most important one. My friend and the attorney, Daniel Horowitz, explained to me last week that he actually was in the Supreme Court arguing with the case, protecting police on the exact same situation years ago, where if a policeman makes a mistake and arrests somebody, and he was saying there was something else, like they were pursuing, if you're pursuing somebody like Freddie Gray was being pursued, and you inadvertently arrest him by mistake, the officer has immunity to prosecution. The Supreme Court already upheld that. So now here we have this lady saying the very same thing, but it gets better in clip 10.
When you have a complicated case like this and a volatile case like this, you have to take your time to get it right. You have to take your time so that people have confidence that the charges that you are placing are not motivated by political ambition and do not reflect your inexperience. In this case, 2 weeks is almost unheard of a case like this.
Remember what I said when this happened? I said I've never seen charges filed so quickly. It normally takes months to do investigation. Now listen to 11. What else this Mosby did to rush to judgment?
She did not use her own homicide unit to investigate this. She was doing a separate investigation, which, by the way, will probably complicate her ability to prosecute the case. But she didn't use her most experienced attorneys. She did not use the grand jury, which should have been a very important tool to her to swear witnesses under oath, so that if they change their testimony later, to have ordinary citizens of that grand jury ask questions about what happened, so she can get their feedback as to what questions are unanswered and as to what their perception of what the appropriate charges would be.
So you understand that these cops were railroaded by a vicious, greedy, aggressive state attorney who has political ambitions. You get it so far? It gets even better. She says Mosby, who made the illegal arrest of the cops, could be charged under her own theory of false imprisonment when it's shown that the knife, in fact, was spring-assisted and therefore prohibited, and they had every right to arrest Freddie Gray. She could then go to jail under the same theory that she's using against the cops. And then, to top it off, wouldn't this be delightful? She could be sued since she forfeited her immunity from civil action by doing the charging herself. So let's listen to the last one in the series. In number 12.
she didn't even have the autopsy report until the morning of she was announcing the charges. In other words, her mind was already made up. Ditto with the police report. She didn't get the completed police investigative report